Hi, I'm Andrea.
I'm Claudia.
And this is Judgy Crime Girls.
Hey, besties.
Well, hello there.
Long days are here.
More sunshine.
Mm-hmm.
I started growing some cilantro.
Yummy.
That's my favorite thing ever.
Yeah.
We made our own pizzas last night.
Oh, how fun.
They turned out amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm all about like thyme and black olives. You know me, all the things you hate. That's what I love.
And that is why we get along.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yeah. For as different as we are, we're on the same page, especially about things like this.
Yeah.
And sometimes food.
Food for sure.
You're going to end up in the taco van.
In the van.
What food do we have today?
Today we're snacking on sociable crackers. They're savory crackers. They come in 6 shapes. I only see 3 on the box.
I love how they make it a big deal
I know.
on the cover that there's 6 shapes.
6 shapes, but then they only show 3.
They do.
Literally.
I wonder if that's a thing for charcuterie boards, like that you would need a certain number of shapes or sizes to go. I'm not a big charcuterie board person.
Me neither.
But I would imagine that those are the type of crackers.
Well, it even comes with a recipe on the back for cheese truffles.
Shut up. Those cheese balls.
Yeah.
Those are good.
I might have to make these. I'll take a look at it later.
You will not.
I probably won't.
We have our bites. What rights do we have?
My weird law is coming to you from Alaska. It is illegal to push a moose out of a moving airplane. I don't even know what to say to that.
A lot of these, I don't know what to say to.
I mean, I'm pretty sure nobody would do it anyway to push a moose. Why would a moose be on an airplane in the first place? But it's just one of those where you wonder, or that makes you wonder, what exactly happened?
So you know me, and I'm just sitting here. I can see the moose. He is crossing his legs. He's reading a newspaper. This is a regular thing.
And he's being pushed out of the plane?
Yeah, moose are practically people. You cannot do this. It's not okay.
All these stupid laws. I just want to know what happened for you to make this law.
I'm envisioning a moose crying, falling to their death. They're like, you'll pay for this. There will be a law.
I would love to go back in time for just a minute and be like, who was that fucking idiot?
Yeah.
That did something so stupid.
Oh, you know what would be really cool is if we should add this to our website, like all of our stupid laws and then the picture of the reason why that law exists. Like the guy that made this law happen, the idiot that actually pushed the moose.
That's what I would like to find out.
For now, we just feel bad for the moose.
That's awful. So you ready to hear what's going on in Alaska?
Alaska is a terrible place. I don't care what you say.
No.
The butcher baker was there,
yes.
And I cannot even. Now, we're not there often. I'll tell you that. We're not there often.
We've been there, I think, maybe a couple times. I had the Coldhurst family. You had the butcher baker.
Yes.
And I think that was it.
That was it.
Yeah.
So I will once again put on all my winter gear and follow you.
Yeah, we're going to be in Alaska and actually Canada too.
All right.
In June of 1988, 23-year-old Philip Fraser started his trek from Anchorage, Alaska to Olympia, Washington, where he was set to start his pre-med classes at Evergreen State College. However, a week after he left, his vehicle was found abandoned and set on fire at a car wash in Prince George, British Columbia, Canada, and Philip was nowhere to be found. So June 19th, 1988 was A fairly mild spring evening in Prince George, British Columbia. At 9:30 p.m., an intense fire rages inside of a bay at a car wash. A car had been set on fire. The flames and heat so intense it ignites the outside sign and the roof of the building. Firefighters got there and quickly put out the fire. The Prince George substation of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, RCMP, began to process what they could of the burned car, and it is quickly identified as a 1983 Volkswagen Jetta, a two-door sedan with a sunroof and a missing license plate. Now, it took them a hot minute, but the following morning they were able to piece together the VIN number. And it turned out the burned-out Jetta belonged to 23-year-old Philip Fraser from Anchorage, Alaska. The Prince George RCMP kind of figured something, obviously was wrong. Either the vehicle was stolen without Philip's knowledge, or he is a victim of foul play, or maybe this was some kind of insurance fraud. The remains of the Jetta left absolutely no clues as to the whereabouts of the owner. So Prince George RCMP contacted the Alaska State Police to see if the Jetta's plates had maybe been reported stolen prior to finding the car. So once the plates came back clear, they explained to the Alaska State Police they had nothing but the Jetta's remains sitting in the car wash and no owner. Alaska State Police immediately entered the plates as stolen and sent out a statewide APB. So who was Philip Fraser? Philip was born on January 3rd, 1965, and he was one of three sons born to his parents, Robert and Shirley Fraser. Philip's father, Dr. Robert Fraser, was an internist originally from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, whose work had brought him out to Alaska. And he ended up loving it there so much that he decided to permanently stay in Alaska, where he would plant his roots and raise a family. While in Alaska, Dr. Robert Fraser became well known as one of the region's most renowned experts on tuberculosis, and he eventually served as the director of tuberculosis control for the Alaska Department of Public Health. Now, Philip's mother, Dr. Shirley Fraser, was a well-renowned neurologist. Both of Philip's parents were incredibly smart and very hardworking people who made sure to instill similar values in their three sons. In 1982, Philip graduated from West Anchorage High School at 17. The following year, he actually attended Western Maryland College, which is his father's alma mater, but he only stayed for a year, and that was all the way across the other side of the country, so far away from home, and he was homesick. He missed Alaska, so he moved back. He spent a couple years trying to figure out what he wanted to do with his life, and eventually decided to follow his parents' footsteps and enrolled in pre-med classes at Evergreen State College in Olympia, Washington. Despite his parents' objections, he planned on driving the 2,300-mile journey to Olympia in his 1983 Volkswagen Jetta, all the while camping along the way.
Okay.
2,300 miles. That's unbelievably far.
Right. It sounded like he just could not make up his mind for a while, and then he did, and he just seemed dead set on doing this weird-ass thing.
Yeah, he's like, I'm going to drive there and, enjoy nature. He was very outdoorsy. He loved the outdoors. And he's like, and I'm going to camp. And his parents weren't happy, but they supported him. So on June 14th, 1988, Philip had packed up all his things into his Jetta, including 2 handguns, because he was going to camp, and wildlife is crazy in Alaska. So he took 2 handguns. Philip left that day between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m., hoping to cover a few hundred miles before it got dark. However, Within about 5 hours, Philip noticed something was wrong with his car, and he made the decision to end his first day early, stopping just outside of an Alaskan town named Tok. And that's one of the last populated towns before a long, desolate, and dangerous stretch of road.
I would turn right back around.
Especially if my car is acting up. So that evening, Philip called his parents and told them what had happened. He also told them where he was and that he drove more than 300 kilometers, which is about 190 miles throughout the day. His dad asked for more details about the car and what was going on, but Philip kind of minimized the situation and he said everything was fine. He didn't want his parents to worry. And he was only about 5 hours away, still close enough for them to come and get him, which he didn't want, I'm sure. So he told his parents good night, and that was the last conversation they would ever have with Philip.
So sad.
So between Prince Rupert and Prince George, British Columbia, Highway 16 is a 450-mile, or about 725 kilometers, stretch of road in British Columbia known as the Highway of Tears. And I'm sure a lot of you have heard of the Highway of Tears. Over a period of 40 years, at least 21 Indigenous women have been last seen around or found murdered along Highway 16. Now, although Philip wasn't an Indigenous woman or a child, something happened. Something was wrong. Very wrong. And fortunately, there was really no waiting period or hesitation from the RCMP in trying to find Philip. So they had to retrace Philip's steps from when he last talked to his parents, which was right outside Tok. From there, they found out that late morning of June 17th, Philip crossed into Canada and had signed a Royal Canadian Mounted Police non-resident firearm declaration at the Canada Border Services Agency. Wow. That's a mouthful. In Beaver Creek, Yukon Territory, he had to surrender his 2 handguns because it was illegal to bring guns into Canada, which is not good. I mean, he was going to camp in the wilderness and now he didn't have any guns and he's driving this long stretch of desolate highway.
That just sucks. Especially since that highway is known for disappearances, right, and they take your guns.
And you're by yourself. So the RCMP put Philip's picture in newspapers and some leads were coming in slowly. Prince George RCMP was able to confirm that Philip had stayed at a campground near Lake Dease the early morning hours of June 18th, which was a day before his car was found on fire.
Okay.
Then there were numerous sightings of Philip at a campground in Dawson Creek, British Columbia, which was 4.5 hours past Prince George, and then the leads stopped coming in. So on July 27th, 1988, some tourists pulled into a gravel turnaround right off of Highway 37A, also called the Glacier Highway, to stretch their legs. And it was a beautiful area where you could take really beautiful pictures. And one of them had a dog, and he took his dog out of the car to go on a little walk, and the dog started pulling the guy over to some thick shrubs. And that's where he found Philip Fraser's dead body face down in the mud.
Oh, no.
So RCMP quickly obtained dental records from Alaska because they just kind of figured that's who it was. And 2 days later, the remains were positively identified as Philip's. The medical examiner determined cause of death to be multiple gunshot wounds by a handgun. Based on the advanced decomposition of the body, his estimated time of death was around the time he went missing. RCMP worked extensively in the Upper Liard and Dease Lake area, and within a day interviewed Gay Frockledge, owner of 40 Mile Flats Cafe, a gas station and restaurant over 720 miles from the Beaver Creek checkpoint where he declared his guns, and just an hour south of Dease Lake where Philip was last seen alive. Gail had actually called in a tip a couple of weeks earlier. Gail worked at the cafe with her daughter Tina and claimed to have not only seen Philip on the afternoon of June 18th, but his alleged killer as well.
No way.
Yes. So that afternoon, Gay claimed that someone driving a dark-colored pickup with a light stripe on the side had dropped off a hitchhiker near her cafe. A hitchhiker that, according to Gay, was off. Very off. Gay was supposed to leave around this time while Tina was working until close, but she was so uncomfortable that she wouldn't leave her daughter while the hitchhiker was at the cafe eating food. So a short time later, she saw a small black Jetta pull into the parking lot of the cafe, but the driver didn't get out of the car. But they know it's Philip's car. And it seemed like he just kind of pulled over and stopped to look for something in his car. He kept leaning over like he was looking for something. So around this time, the weird hitchhiker finished his meal and paid for it in Canadian currency. He then went outside and started talking to Philip, probably trying to hitch a ride with Philip. Philip must have told him no because the hitchhiker was walking away along Highway 37. Philip remained in the parking lot for a few moments, but then drove off. And as he did, he passed a hitchhiker, and the hitchhiker seemed to run alongside his car for a moment. And eventually, Philip pulled over and let the man get in.
She saw all of that?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. She must have really been looking, like terrified of this guy.
And at that time, nobody obviously knew that Philip was missing. But yeah, the two men drove off together, and Gay recalls feeling unsettled by the entire encounter, along with her daughter Tina, who witnessed this interaction as well.
Interesting. So were there cameras? No. Okay.
Investigators began pursuing this lead, hoping to find out what had led from this chance encounter near Dease Lake on June 18th to Philip's murder and his vehicle being found burning in Prince George the very next evening on June 19th. This was a distance of nearly 900 kilometers, which is over 550 miles apart. That's far.
His body from his car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for several weeks, investigators traveled along Highway 37 and Highway 16. They made sure to stop at each restaurant and gas station several times between the 40 Miles Flat Cafe where Gail worked and Prince George, handing out flyers, talking about Philip Fraser and the hitchhiker. And one investigator would later explain, "We thought he might be assuming the identity of Philip Fraser, or his story at least, making purchases and getting fuel with his cards," because Philip did carry major credit cards with him. And he said, "We just kept on putting his name out there." And it kind of worked. Multiple witnesses, including folks from two establishments along Highway 37 and several others on Highway 16, shared accounts similar to Gay and Tina's. But none of the witnesses the hitchhiker encountered were able to identify Philip in photos provided to RCMP by his parents. So they're like, "Yeah, we saw that guy." So they showed him a picture of Philip, and they're like, "That's not Philip. That's not the guy."
Okay.
So the hitchhiker gave similar stories of Philip's life, and they were able to give similar descriptions of the hitchhiker. The hitchhiker would say, "I'm on my way to college. My parents are doctors, and my name is Philip." Fortunately, all the witnesses were able to describe what he looked like. This hitchhiker told one witness that he had been visiting relatives in Tok, Alaska, and another that he worked for a fish processing plant. And he told another witness that he was a medical student from Toronto and just left a friend's wedding in Whitehorse, and he was hitchhiking home. So witnesses described the hitchhiker, the man they believed to be Philip, as a white male in his early to mid-20s with a large beer belly, rotten teeth, strong body odor, and stubble on his face. Brown hair, brown eyes. He was very unkempt and waddled when he walked.
They believed that to be Philip?
Because that's what he would tell people. Because Philip was murdered and he kept driving his car.
For how long?
Just about a day.
Oh, for a day.
Mm-hmm.
He just walked around impersonating him.
Yeah.
Wow.
Most described him as slow. He constantly bit his nails, and he's a chain smoker of American brands. When he smokes, he cups his right hand around the cigarette, holding the cigarette with his index finger and thumb, kind of like a joint. They all were unsure if he is Canadian or American. Nobody could really tell. Prince Rupert, Prince George, RCMP, continued to travel between 40 Mile Flats Cafe and Prince George, stopping everywhere they can along the way, including campgrounds and parks, on different days and hours, hoping to find someone who could identify the suspect. It wasn't until nearly 2 months later, the very end of summer, that police were able to learn more about this mysterious individual. Eddie and Pauline Olson, a couple from Kidwanga, had not only encountered the suspected killer, but he stayed the night in their home.
No.
Oh my gosh, these two, I swear to God. They were the only witnesses that spent a significant amount of time with the suspect, which was shortly after Philip's execution. Eddie's seen a composite sketch and description of the hitchhiker at a gas station that he frequented, and it looked and sounded just like his stranded motorist he helped a couple months earlier.
That is terrifying.
On the late evening of Sunday, June 18th, and 250 miles south of the 40 Miles Flat Cafe, where Philip picked up the hitchhiker, Eddie and Pauline Olson spotted a motorist stranded on Highway 37 not far from their home. They stopped and they actually towed the Jetta to their home. And this wasn't the first time the Olsons invited a stranded motorist into their home. Like, they've done that before.
That's a little bit weird.
Unbelievable. It's a very desolate area, and I guess they just didn't want people to be out there. It's dangerous. But this is what got me, and I couldn't believe it. Eddie let the man into their basement where they had a couple of couches, pillows, and blankets for their guests to sleep on. No big deal. But get this, he slept downstairs where Eddie had about 15 guns in a gun case right where he slept, like right next to him.
The gun case was unlocked?
I don't know that.
Ooh.
But scary nonetheless.
Absolutely. That's, looking back, that would about make you sick.
I'm sure it did. So the Olsons thought their unexpected house guest to be relatively harmless, and fortunately, nothing happened that night. The following morning, the young man met the Olsons upstairs for breakfast. They tried to engage him in conversation, but he seemed very secretive and evasive, refusing to even participate in small talk. He wouldn't even really talk to them. However, at one point, the hitchhiker let slip that his parents were doctors in Anchorage and that he had to start class in Seattle the following day, June 20th, which Philip was supposed to start class. Because of this rush, he was looking to hit the road really early and he needed to get going. And out of the blue, he offered the Olsons a deal. He offered to sell his car to them, that Jetta, that was in relatively good condition. It was only a 5-year-old car. Eddie stepped outside with the young man and began to inspect the vehicle, which ended up breaking down on the side of the road because they had to tow it to their place.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah.
So he looked at the car and it seemed to be fine other than a few small mechanical and cosmetic issues, which was an easy fix. Eddie was definitely interested in buying the car, especially for below market value. But he told the man that if a deal were to happen, it would have to wait until Monday because this was Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to make sure that the banks were open and he would declare the sale through customs. And this did not sit well with that guy who insisted that if a deal were to happen, it had to happen today. And Eddie was like, well, that ain't happening.
Good.
So the young man then offered to exchange the car for a plane ticket to Seattle, but that offer was also refused by Eddie. But the guy still wanted to thank Eddie and Pauline for their hospitality and offered them some cash, and Eddie told him not to worry about it. The guy insisted, and then he pulled out 2 different wallets and gave Eddie Olson $20 American for his troubles. He then told them that he had to get going in order to make it to school on time. So he went outside to work on his car to figure out what was wrong and discovered that all it needed was a fan belt. This was an easy fix. He took care of it and he was back on the road between 8:30 a.m. and 9 a.m. 12 hours later and 300 miles away, Philip's Jetta was found on fire at the car wash in Prince George.
Why would you set it on a fire at a car wash?
Who knows?
Like, that's a dumpster fire.
Yeah.
Literally.
So as far as the police know, the Olsons were the last people to have had an encounter with the hitchhiker who was driving Philip's car and even taking his identity. Their encounter with this weirdo seemed to fill in a vital period of time, leading police to believe that Philip had died within hours of meeting this unknown hitchhiker. Officials with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police would continue searching for answers over the next several months, receiving more than 500 tips by the end of the first year. That October, they conducted searches in garbage dumps around the region of Prince George, British Columbia, looking for Philip's belongings, which somehow disappeared overnight. So these items included a stereo, tapes with handwritten labels, a passport, luggage, camping equipment, and clothing, all of which had likely been thrown away by the killer before he set the vehicle on fire at the car wash.
Yeah, because he brought everything with him.
He had his whole young life in that car. It is unknown if police found anything in these searches, but it is unlikely as there are still no updates in Philip's case. Online theorists have speculated that Philip's killer might have been none other than Michael McGray, a notorious Canadian serial killer who targeted hitchhikers through the 80s and 90s. But McGray was arrested in 98 and over the next several years would be charged and convicted of nearly 6 murders. And in the years since his arrest, McGray had confessed to killing upwards of 12 people, including victims in the United States, mainly Seattle, but has refused to give names. Despite matching the profile of Philip Fraser's killer, including the physical description, police do not believe that Michael McGray is responsible. They have since ruled him out as a suspect, or at least don't have enough evidence to maybe feasibly suspect him. It is unknown how investigators eliminated him. We don't know. But some in the online community continue to believe him a possible culprit and worthy of suspicion. Investigators continue to withhold many of the specific details of the case, such as Philip's exact cause of death, Now, we do know that he was shot by his killer, a detail released very early on, but we don't really know how many times or where or how was he killed, where he was dumped. All we know is that the killer used a handgun, and that's about it. These details are obviously kept because police believe that the case is still solvable and want to ensure that the integrity of the case is not compromised in any way. The mysterious hitchhiker, who was not only seen impersonating Philip, but was the last known person to be with him, remains the most likely suspect in this case. However, to this day, this bizarre individual remains unidentified. He has not been found. Investigators have publicly stated that the hitchhiker likely learned everything he could about Philip in a short period of time. Details such as his parents' profession, where he was headed, etc. We mentioned that earlier, before eventually killing him. He then made off with all of Philip's belongings, and we don't know where those are. Yeah, and we don't know, why he targeted Philip and what really happened in those short few hours, but police believe this unknown hitchhiker was familiar with the Seattle and Toronto regions, and that following this crime, he likely returned to one of those afterwards. If he is still alive today, he would likely be in his maybe mid-50s, if not older. Philip's family continue to hold out hope that justice can be found. But Philip's father unfortunately passed away in 2014 at the age of 83. At the time of his death, he still believed that Philip's killer could be found, but even now, almost 10 years later, there are still no answers for Philip's family. Philip was cremated, and the family spread his ashes across Otter Lake, which he often visited with his family. Just taking somebody's identity is just, so scary.
Yeah. I'm envisioning this very intimidating individual approaching my car and basically barging their way in. And then to know on the flip side where he's thinking, I'm going to get all the information about you and then I'm going to just take over your whole life.
Well, and this is information you get during small talk. I don't think he got that information under, threatening Philip. It was, where are you going? Whatever. It's like, oh, my parents are doctors. I'm going to medical school. Or
it almost seems forceful, though, because it's like he saw him in the parking lot. He had to literally run after him down the road to get this ride. It makes me wonder if he had a gun. Why else would he stop?
Yeah, he must have.
Stop. Where are you? Where are you going? What are you from? Just, so scary. So scary. Such a creepy thought. Great case to cover.
Thank you.
It's terrifying for his family.
Yeah,
for everybody.
Absolutely. If you have a theory on who this guy could be, let us know.
Yeah.
We appreciate you listening. Thank you so much.
Stay sassy.
Stay judgy.
And stay tuned in with the Judgy Crime Girls. We love you. Okay.
Bye.